everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be making this beautiful crocheted baby tunic. This tunic or jumper is for 12 to 18 months old baby girl. I made 3/4 sleeves, but of course you can make them full length if that's what you prefer. And for decorations, we made these two beautiful flowers that we attached to the front of the jumper. I also needed to make sure that the sweater can go over baby's head easily, so there are two buttons in the back of the sweater. My buttons are 2 centimeters wide. That would be 3/4 of an inch. And let's see what else I needed for this beautiful baby jumper. I needed 2 sizes crochet hook, 6 millimeter, which was for the body of the jumper, and then 4.5 millimeter I used for the flowers. I also needed yarn threader. That kind of helps when you're trying to put thick yarn through a darning needle. I needed 2 sizes of darning needle. One I used for most of the tail ends that I needed to weave in, and this one I used at the right at the end, to work with 2 strands of yarn, full strength of yarn at the same time. I needed a bunch of stitch markers, measuring tape, a pair of scissors, and the yarn, of course, that I worked with. Both yarns are by Inspirations, Caron Simple Soft. This is category 4 yarn, and recommended crochet hook is 5 millimeters. I used 6. So this color is neon pink, and complemented with this white yarn, number 9701. So without further ado, let's begin. I'm going to start my sweater with the foundation chain single crochet. So the way this works is that you get at the same time the foundation chain as well as the single crochets made. But the main advantage of doing foundation chain single crochet is that they're very stretchy in opposed to the regular chains and then doing single crochets in those chains. So here I have 42 foundation chain single crochets and 42 regular chains. And to demonstrate the difference, if I start here and stretch my foundation chain single crochet, I can stretch it all the way to 16 inches. And if I try to do that with the regular chain stitches, I can stretch it till, and I'm really pulling on it, maybe 14.5. So definitely big difference, and especially when it comes to babies' heads. We know they're usually big. So this prevents the struggle. You know, we're gonna put the button in the back of the sweater as well, so we make sure that the sweater comfortably goes over baby's head. I will start my project with white yarn. I've already made foundation chains here, but I'm going to do a demonstration in pink because it's easier to see on the white background with my white hook. To do your foundation single crochet row, we will start with the slip knot and chain 2. Now it's really important that every time you're picking the yarn, you go through 2 loops. So here we have a V here, but we also have this little third chain in the back. I'm gonna go with my hook through both these loops, like so. All right, So grab both loops like so, pull the yarn through, and lengthen that loop a little bit so it's aligned nicely and comfortably with the one on your hook. Now go through the first loop only, and now finish your single crochet as you normally would. Now when you flip your work now, you will see a little V forming in the back. So right here, you're going to put your hook in there into those two loops. So this is loop number 1 and loop number 2. Pull the yarn through, go through the first loop on your hook, and finish your single crochet. Flip your work and look for that V right here. Pull the yarn through, even out the length, go through the first loop, and then finish your single crochet. Again, you're looking for that V in the back of the stitch. Pull through, even out, go through the first loop, finish your single crochet. One more time, flip your work, go through that V stitch. Once you get a hang of this, it's really easy. Pull, even out, go through the first loop, go through the both loops. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foundation single crochets. We need 42. I have 41 stitch. Now the 42nd stitch, or the last stitch, I will not finish with white yarn but switch to my contrasting yarn, in my case hot pink. So insert your hook into the last V, pull up that yarn, even out the length, pull through first loop, and now we're going to add our contrasting yarn. And pull through. Chain 3, turn your work. We will skip this stitch, and into the next stitch we will put 2 double crochets. Skip 1, into the next stitch, 2 double crochets. So that's our sequence for this row. 2 double crochets in one stitch, skip 1 stitch, 2 double crochets into the next, and repeat. At the end of the row, I have 2 stitches remaining. So one is the regular stitch and then my turning chain. I'm going to skip my regular stitch and then do double crochet into the turning chain. There. So chain 3 and turn. We're going to be working into the top stitches now. So do 2 double crochets into this first stitch, and then 2 double crochets into the next 2 chains, or stitches. So again, into the next stitch, 2 double crochets, and then into the next 2 stitches, 1 double crochet into each. 2 double crochet into the next one, and 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. I ended up with 2 double crochets in my last stitch, and now I'm going to do my last double crochet into the top of chain 3. We're now done with row 3. So this was row 1, row 2, and row 3. So chain 3 and turn your work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put a cluster of 2 double crochets into each cluster of 2 double crochets from the previous row. And then we're going to put a cluster between the 2 double crochets that we made. So we're not increasing in this row, we're just evening things out. Again, into the actual cluster, we're going to put a cluster of 2 double crochets. And between the 2 double crochets, we're going to put a cluster. Row 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So row 5, we're going to do increases. So put clusters, 3 clusters inside the 3 clusters from the previous row. So this is 2 and this is 3. And now we're going to add a cluster in this space here. So double crochet 2, then do 3 regular clusters. Oops. And 3. And then increase. So 3 regular clusters and then an extra cluster in the space in between them until the end of the row. So at the end, I'm going to end up with 3 regular double crochet clusters. So make sure that you adjust the number of clusters and do necessary increases if that's what you need to make sure that you have 3 clusters left at the end. And then at the end of this row, we will switch yarn. So I'm going to slip stitch to the top of chain 3, pull the loop up through only the first 2 loops on my hook, and then grab my white yarn and pull through. Now chain 3, turn your work, and we will repeat this row. So double crochet cluster inside each of the double crochet clusters from the previous row. Row 7 will be our increase row. So chain 3, turn your work with that same yarn. We're going to do regular shell in here for the cluster. And then we're going to do an increase. And now we're going to repeat an increase every 3 regular clusters. So cluster stitches of 2 double crochets into the next 3 clusters. And then our increase between the 2 clusters. At the end, you should have an increase and then 1 cluster left. So we did 1 cluster as usual. We put our first increase right after, then 3 clusters regular, and then increase. At the end of row 7 I have 47 clusters. So please count yours to make sure we have the same number. I actually cut my white yarn, and I am going to cut my pink as well. I don't want to carry it over 2 rows. So I'm going to restart my pink yarn, and then we're going to do 1 row of pink yarn going around. So to do so, I'm going to undo my last stitch or the loops. So now that I have 2 loops left on my hook, I will reintroduce my pink yarn. Now chain 3 and just do regular clusters inside each of the clusters that we have from a previous row. So at the end of this row we should have 47 clusters. Our circle is nicely closing. So we're going to be working on finishing the yoke here before we join the 2 sides together. So what we need to do first is weave in all these ends so we can work over them when we're ready. And as far as depth of my yoke now is 4 inches or 10 centimeters. I will add 1 more row, maybe even 2. We'll see once we finish this side here, those sides here. So weave in all the ends and then we'll continue. I weaved in all my ends, and so to continue we're going to chain 1 and into that same very first stitch right there we're going to do single crochet, and then 1 into this space, 1 single crochet into this little controlled space, if I should say so, and 1 into the actual big space. So we're doing 2 single crochet per each double crochet row. So here in this little stitch we're going to put 1 and then 1 into the empty space, 1 in here, 1 into the space until we get to the end of the row. The last stitch I am going to put right here where this yarn is coming out of, and single crochet, and I'm going to slip stitch into this very first single crochet in white yarn. So let's count our stitches: 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16 stitches. So chain 1, turn our work, and into that very first single crochet we're going to single crochet and single crochet all the way to the end of this row. You should have 16 single crochets. I marked my spaces for 2 buttonholes, and what I've done is I left the very first stitch undone. This is going to be our second single crochet. Then I'm going to do, this is going to be our second single crochet. So 1, 2, and then we're going to leave 3 undone and single crochet into the 4th one, and we're going to do the same from the bottom. So this is our last stitch. We're going to do single crochet in this stitch, 1, 2, 3 left alone, and then single crochet into the fourth. So I chained one, turn my work, and into the first single crochet I'm going to put single crochet there and single crochet into that next stitch, chain 3, and we will single crochet into that marked stitch. So this is going to be the width of the button. Make sure it's not, if you feel like it's too big, and actually I just might, so I am going to decrease by 1. So chain only 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the third. So 1, 2, and then 3, not slip stitch but do single crochet. So that's the size of our buttonholes now. So remove this stitch marker, and now I'm going to move this stitch marker because we decreased by 1 space, so it's going to be right here. So we still have 2 stitches in between. So single crochet until our next stitch marker. So in the marked space we're going to do our last single crochet, then chain 2, and then single crochet into the second last stitch, and single crochet into the very last stitch, chain 1 and turn. Now we have 2 buttonholes, which is fantastic, and now we're going to do single crochets in all of those stitches. So we had 2 chain 1s. You can do 2 single crochets into the actual buttonhole, and then resume with single crochets. Last single crochet, then 2 inside the buttonhole, and now we have 2 remaining. So 1 and 2. So we just made and finished our 2 buttonholes. If we're done with our buttonholes, I'm going to put the yarn on hold and leave the yarn in place. Grab another ball of yarn, and we're going to start our work now on this side. So I'm going to start in the very last or turning chain. This is on the bottom of my yoke, so not the neck part, this is the neck part. So we're going to chain 1, and into that same stitch do single crochet, and then we're going to do the second one in or around the first double crochet. And now we're going to repeat what we did on the other side. So this is stitch number 3, 4, 14, 15, and in the last one will be into that first single crochet on top where we're going to slip stitch. So let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Chain 1, turn your work, and now go over these same stitches 3 more rows. So this is row 2, and repeat this 2 more times. So I got my 4 rows which is the one for buttonhole, and the other one is for button band. So now we're gonna cut the yarn on one of them. So make sure that you fold the buttonhole piece on top of the button band piece, and then cut the yarn on the one on the bottom. So we're gonna continue working with the one on top, which is the one that has two buttonholes. So I'm gonna give myself a couple 3 inches, cut my yarn, pull that yarn through, and then I am going to weave in this end, and then later on we're gonna be working over that tail. So now we need to connect the front to the back button band and buttonhole panels. So we're going to be working into this space right here. So we have space number 1, space number 2 right here, number 3, and this is our space number 4. So just between the actual work and our button band, I'm going to insert my hook right here. So let's mark that space. It's just going to be easier to find it when we go with our hook the second time into that same stitch. So we have one space, which is 1 row, second row, third row, and this would be like the beginning of our band. So in that space right here. Okay, so let's insert our hook into that marked space right here, and I will slip stitch. Now we can chain 3, yarn over, and I'll go through those same loops. Now can you remove your slip marker and pull the yarn through both and finish your double crochet. There. Now we're going to go to the space number 1, which is right here, and on the back panel right here. So yarn over, go through the first panel, and then through the back panel, pull the yarn through, double crochet, and repeat through the first, through the back, and double crochet. All right, now we're going to continue working as before, 1 cluster or 2 double crochet cluster in each cluster from the row below. But before we continue, let's count our clusters. So I counted my clusters, and I have 49 clusters, and I need 52. So I am going to have to add 3 more clusters to reach my 52 number. I'm going to do so in the back and on the sides of my work. So approximate the middle of your work. So I'm going to mark this cluster and do my increase there. And then I'm going to do 2 more clusters in the back, sort of a shoulder area. So they don't have to be exactly in the same location, but as long as you have them nicely spread out. So I'm going to do 1. Oops, I didn't mark the actual shell. So I'm going to do the stitch marker into this cluster and just adjust this one into the actual cluster, and I'm going to go this one here. Okay, so that's going to be our 3 increases. So to continue, Just continue so until you reach your stitch marker. Can't believe how easy this little jumper is to make. To increase, remove the stitch marker and instead of working in the middle of the double crochet cluster from the previous row, we're going to put one cluster in first stitch and the second stitch of that same cluster. And then the other one. And then continue with your regular clusters until you reach your next marker, and then you will repeat this increase by working into the 2 stitches of that cluster instead of in the middle of that cluster. So that's our increase. Double check the number of your clusters. I now have 52 clusters. So now we need to mark where we're going to separate for the sleeves of our little jumper. So what I'll do is I'm going to mark the first 8 stitches. So this belongs to one side. This is our half. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and put the stitch marker in that space between the 8th and 9th cluster. Okay, and do the same on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and we'll put the cluster in here. Now from our fronts, we're going to count 10 shells or 10 clusters for the sleeves. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's just double check. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we're going to go back to the other sleeve. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We should have 16 stitches remaining for the back. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And let's continue. So I'm going to slip stitch to my first space here and chain 3, and let's do our clusters until we reach our first marker, and then we'll separate for the sleeves. Once you get to the stitch marker, I'm going to put 1 double crochet in that marked space. Yarn over, get to the next marker, and in that space I'm going to put my second double crochet. Then you're going to flip your work around and continue with your regular cluster stitches until you get to the next stitch marker. I'm at my next stitch marker, so I'm going to put 1 double crochet in that space, yarn over, and then go to the next stitch marker and put a double crochet in that space, and then continue with your regular cluster stitches. At the end of the row, we're going to slip stitch to the top of chain 3. So this is 1, 2, 3. So in the top of chain 3, we're going to slip stitch. And I'm going to cut my yarn here and reattach your yarn. And I will also weave in this end before I continue. I will reattach my yarn into that chain space. Chain 3 and do additional double crochet into that same space. And now continue the regular clusters until you reach the desired length of your garment. Two rows of mine, so these are the 2 rows, is 1 inch. So I need 12 more rows, but let's do 10. I will put a stitch marker in this row so that I know I should start counting 10 rows from this row. So I'll just mark it like so. At the end of each round, you will slip stitch into 1, 2, 3, the top of chain 3. Now we're going to slip stitch into the space between the 2 double crochets, chain 3, and continue with regular clusters. One thing to keep in mind is because we're not turning our work anymore at the end of each round, the yarn will travel. So our start and beginning of the round will have to be adjusted accordingly. You will see that soon enough you may end up here, or and to adjust that, just cut the yarn, start over in the middle underneath the armpit or in the armpit area. So this is where I stopped or started doing the rounds around for my body of the jumper. So I said 10 rows, but I did 15 in total. So I started counting from here, 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, and 15 rows. Then I cut the yarn. I'm going to do probably 2 rows with white yarn. So finish your 15 rows, and then we're going to do the sleeve together. To start the sleeve, I'm going to get into the middle of the arm opening. There is a full V stitch or double crochet, 2 double crochet together. So I'm going to tie my yarn there. And now chain 3. And turn your work sideways. So we can see that these clusters are going this way. Obviously, there is 1 double crochet here, which we put just before when we were separating for the sleeves. So I'm going to put my first cluster in that stitch. So this is the single double crochet that we did. This is the little double crochet cluster. This is a cluster. So we're looking for that 1 double crochet as an extra that we've made. In that stitch right here, I'm going to put my first cluster. And now continue with clusters all the way around until you get to the other side, and then we'll do our last cluster together. At the end of the row, this is the chain 3 that we did. This is the single double crochet that we did before separating for the sleeves. I'm going to put my stitch in here. So just before this chain 3. Do your last cluster. We're going to slip stitch to the top of chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to get 2 strands there. So that way we took care of the gaps. If we didn't do this one double crochet or chain 3, there would be a big hole here, and we would have to close it by sewing afterwards. So I'm going to now slip stitch into the very first cluster, chain 3, and continue doing my clusters just like we did for the body of the jumper. So this is our second round. I'm going to mark my first round, which would be this chain 3 right here. So when I'm counting, I'm going to start from here. So this is going to be row 1, 2, and I have, so that is the chain 3 that I did. So that's row 1. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 rows. And at the end of row 2, we will slip stitch into the top of chain 3. Slip stitch into the space between the 2 double crochets, chain 3, and keep going until we have 13 rows. Once you're done with your sleeve, double check that the sleeves are of the same length, and perhaps the easiest way to count is to go on the shoulder area down where the white meets the pink, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And to finish the sleeve, I made myself a little bit of a cuff, which also, to do so, I took smaller hook. It is 4.5 centimeter hook. This is optional. Of course, you can just continue with pink yarn. You can do the sleeve without the cuff. I prefer mine to be a little bit tapered in. So I will start again under the armpit area and start in any of the middles of the V-stitch. And we will chain 3. We will chain 1 and do half double crochet in that space. And we will do half double crochets around the entire sleeve. At the end of the row, slip stitch to the chain 1 and move into that space between the 2 half double crochets, chain 1, and do 1 more half double crochet in that space. You will do 1 half double crochet into the next between the next 2 half double crochets, and then 2. So we will alternate 2 half double crochets and 1 half double crochets into the middle of each of the cluster from the row before. So if you remember, we started with 2 half double crochets, so my last shell has only 1 half double crochet, and I am going to slip stitch into the top of chain 1 and cut my yarn. I finished my sleeves and I weaved in all the ends, And on this side I weaved in my ends over here. So I'm going to start the white border, which is optional, on the opposite side. I also switched back to my 6mm crochet hook, because all we're going to do is just do a row of double crochet clusters like we did before. So this is right under my armpit area. Pick one of those stitches and chain 3 and double crochet. Move on to the next cluster and start doing 2 double crochet clusters all the way around. I did 1 row of the little border with white, and I'm quite happy with that. You may continue if you wish and do 2 or 3 rows, but for me this is enough. So at the end I'm going to do invisible join. So after my last double crochet, I'm just going to pull the yarn up, grab my darning needle, there. So each stitch that we make has a little V to it. So this is chain 3, this is double crochet, counts as 2 double crochets. So this is the top of this double crochet, and then this will be the top of chain 3 right here. So I'm going to grab my needle and go through the back to front, from the back to front, like this. Pull the yarn through. Now the idea is that we make the length of that stitch that we're creating the same as the other stitches. So now you will not only go through this back loop, grab that loop and the one in the back, so right here. Okay, so this is your stitch, little V, grab that farthest from you loop and the one in the back right here. Pull the yarn, adjust the length of the stitch. That looks pretty good. Hold that yarn with your thumb, and we're going to make a little knot here. Hold it tight with your thumb so you don't put the tension on the last stitch we've made. And now you're going to weave in your ends. There. So you can cut the excess. Let's sew the buttons, or tie the buttons to the sweater. We have 2 buttonholes. One is here, the other one is here. So with my darning needle, I am going to line up my 2 pieces and start with the bottom of my buttonhole. This is my buttonhole, so I'm going to thread my needle halfway through that buttonhole and then go up, and this is the width. 2 stitches are the width of my buttonhole, so that's where I'm going to place my button. So what you can do is grab a piece of contrast yarn, and we're just going to mark those 2 stitches. So right here, so grab that piece of white yarn, and this is where a button will go. And then we're going to do the same for the other buttonhole. Make sure they're lined up and in the same row, so we will double check for that. So this button is in this row, and so is this button placement in the same row. And now we're going to go from the bottom, so right here, through the button, back of the button, and then move up, skipping 2 stitches. And that's that. Make sure this little tail is to the side, you don't work over it. Now we're going to do this 2 more times. To the back. And now what I do is I tie my 2 pieces and tie it. And so that's one button done. And I will repeat this for my other button, and then we shall continue. To start the flower, we're going to do magic circle. I switched back to 4.5mm crochet hook. We will do 10 single crochets into the circle. 1, pull on that tail to close the circle, and we will slip stitch into the first single crochet. Chain 1 and do single crochet into that same space. Put the stitch marker in that stitch, it's going to be easier to find it, to slip stitch into when we're done. Now you will chain 2, skip 1 stitch and single crochet into the next. So that's once, chain 2, skip 1 into the next one, single crochet. That's 2. So this is 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 times. We will now chain 2 and slip stitch into that first single crochet. We are going to change the color, so we're going to still slip stitch partly into this very first single crochet. Now we're going to bring our white yarn in, make a slip knot, and pull that yarn through to finish our slip stitch. There. So we have 5 chain 2 spaces. We are going to slip stitch into that first chain 2 space, chain 1. This is the sequence: a single crochet, half double crochet, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, half double crochet, single crochet, and slip stitch into that same space. So that's our first petal. Now we will slip stitch into the next chain 2 space, which is right here. Chain 1. Now single crochet, half double crochet, 3 double crochets, so 1, 2, and 3, half double crochet, single crochet, and slip stitch, all in one space. So you're going to repeat this in every chain 2 spaces. We're going to have 5 petals. Once you're done with 5 petals, we're going to pull the yarn up and cut it. And use our darning needle to close that flower. And I'm going to go into this very first slip stitch space. And I'm going to tie it to this tail. So we have a longer tail here of the pink yarn, and I'm going to cut another one to that length. And we're going to use that to attach our flower to the sweater. I think it looks pretty cute. So let's make 2 of these. After we have our 2 flowers, I already decided where I'm going to place them, but you can place them anywhere you want. First, I'm going to count from the bottom. I'm just counting the V's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I put the stitch marker into my 6th V. I'm only counting the pink ones. And then going from the side in, the ones that I see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 6 and 6. And then for the other flower, I counted approximately 6 from the top, only the pink flower, the pink yarn V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to move this one up 1 space. And then from the side, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to move it 1 spot this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's where my flowers will go. I'm also going to make sure that I have 2 petals facing up. So like so, instead of just 1. So I want 2 petals up and 1 on the bottom. And we said we were going to leave these 2 strands or tails to attach our flower to the sweater or the jumper. So we have 1 sort of on the other side and both of them on one side, but I want 1 on the other side, so right here. So this is the one that I'm going to tighten so it closes my middle really well. And bring your darning needle to work. And I want to be opposite of this tail, so I'm going to be here. So what I'm going to do is just go backwards. It's going to be a little bit tight. Make sure you don't get the needle into the front of these stitches. And pull your yarn through. So now we are ready. This way. Yes. And I'm going to tie my yarn on each of the 2 sides of this V, the one that I marked. And to do so, put your flower above your work, insert your crochet hook right next to that V or double crochet cluster, and draw one of those tails underneath your work. And just leave it there. Now insert your hook into the other side of the cluster stitch. I can now remove my stitch marker. And so this is my V right here. And I'm going to bring the other tail under my work. Okay. So now that I have both tails underneath my jumper, that looks good. So flip your flower and your jumper over to expose those tails. And now you can tie it once. Then we're going to double check the placement, and it looks good. Now we can continue with making knots to make sure that the flower is safely secured to our fabric. So that should do. And our flower is nicely attached. Now we're going to do the same with the other flower. And the last step to attach these flowers to the jumper is we're going to secure the flower petals to the jumper. Otherwise, when things are bent or washed, the flowers will get not so great looking. So I got myself about 2 feet of white yarn. I'm going to split it. We're going to start from the inside of the jumper and pick a spot closer to the flower center. For example, here. It's also important that we work underneath or right next to these stitches. So right here or here or here. So once you get your yarn through, make sure you leave yourself decent tail. And now we're going to go and insert our needle into the next space right next to the single crochet. All right. So make sure that your other little tail underneath or inside your sweater is not worked through. And so you're going to continue doing this all the way around. And you don't have to hit every stitch. You can skip 1 or 2. Move on to the next petal. And continue working right next to these stitches, like so. I'll see you once I do all my petals around. I did a full circle around my flowers, so all my petals are now secured. It's definitely looking better. And now I'm going to remove my darning needle and do some knots. And now get your darning needle again. And we're gonna weave in this tail between the flower and our jumper. So you can see the flower petals are right underneath. So I'm just gonna thread my needle under pink yarn, but also picking up some of the white yarn. Now I'm gonna double check to make sure that my needle does not show anywhere on the outside of my flower. Done. And we'll do the same with the other flower. Our beautiful jumper or sweater is done. I went for 3/4 sleeves on this sweater. Of course, if you want them longer, you can just continue adding rows to each of the sleeves. We decorated the jumper with these two beautiful flowers. There is also a button closure on the back for ease of wearing it over the child's head. This jumper is appropriate for 12 to 18 months. My final measurements are: chest is 27 centimeters, or almost 11 inches, and the length of my garment is from the top down 12.5 inches, or 31, almost 32 centimeters. I enjoyed making this tutorial and working on this project with you. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. I usually respond them within a couple of days. If you like this project, please hit the subscribe or like button. And until our next project together, stay well, everyone.